Well, after the lockdown, we kind of noticed a slight increase in divorces. That could be for a number of reasons. I mean, firstly, obviously, the courts were closed for about 3 months. So obviously that led to an accumulation of work and people weren't able to consult the lawyers during that time. So maybe that could have been the increase. Also as well, I suppose that when you're living with somebody 24/7, any problems that you may have experienced in the past sort of like amplify, and it gives you, I suppose, more of a push to then go forward and actually separate.
So what is the divorce process like in Gibraltar? I believe there was a recent change in the law.
Yes, I mean, the law obviously keeps up with society's trends. I remember when I started practicing 20 years ago, the law in respect of divorce was very different in that people had to be married for at least 5 years before you could actually petition, unless you have special grounds. Then it changed to 3 years married 10 years ago, and now last August it changed to just having to be married for a year. The procedure now, as long as you can satisfy that you've been married for a year, that one of you resides in Gibraltar, and that one of you has an intention to divorce, then you prepare the paperwork. Well, you go to see a lawyer who prepares all the paperwork for you, and you then file the petition in court. So to start it off, it's very much a more straightforward procedure than previously.
So I can imagine in the last 20 years there have been a number of other changes. What kind of things have there been?
Well, for example, I mean, the law obviously adapts itself to society and the social trends. Now we find men who are more active in the role of caregivers towards their children. So obviously the law has had to adapt to that as well. Now when we go to court and if there's issues in relation to children, you find that men take an active role in their children's upbringing. So when it comes to deciding things like residence of children, it's very much a 50-50 split. Men are recognised as equal caregivers as that of the mums. So obviously, they spend equal time with the children, and obviously you find that in society that is what's happening. So therefore in the courts that's reflected as well.
So divorce is supposedly one of the most stressful things you can go through. What advice would you give to people considering a divorce? It can be a really difficult time emotionally and financially.
Well, divorce or separation, because obviously the breakdown of a family is never easy. Whatever way you decide to obviously end the marriage. My advice would be to try and talk to each other as much as possible. Try and at the end of the day, you are both in control of how you want to end the marriage and the division of the assets, how you want to deal with your children. So it's always best if you can decide things as much as possible between you both. It's very important as well to understand that no one is going to win in a divorce. In fact, what you have to do is actually reach a compromise which is best for you both and your children. People obviously want the best for themselves and the best for their children. And I think that if you are able to decide that with your partner, it's even better. Obviously, once you've reached that sort of like compromise or that agreement, it's always best to go and see a lawyer, run through what you're entitled to, what your rights are. And then obviously that can all be put down in paper, either through an agreement or through a court order if necessary. But at least that will give you the security and the finality that you would require, obviously, moving on. I mean, decisions you take in divorce and separation are decisions that are going to last a lifetime. So obviously you need to make sure that you're taking the best decision in your circumstances.